What's up, guys? I almost never just turn on the camera like this and just start talking. That's why it's I'm using my webcam, not using my regular camera. But I don't know if you've heard, but there has been sort of a shit storm of allegations among the YouTube community of popular YouTubers and sexual abuse, either with like their fans or with just people in their lives. And some of the people accused are like people that I really admire, like some of my favorite YouTubers. So it is a little bit weird to think about. And even some of the people, some of the victims are people that I know, or that not that I know personally, but that I've seen on YouTube and that I've seen in some of these people's videos and stuff like that. But anyway, there's a link to a Tumblr post in the description that sort of like recaps all the allegations. I think it started with one guy, and then people saw that story, and then so they wanted to tell their story, and it just kind of just went crazy, like really fast. And I don't want to be like gossipy or anything like that, but I spent a good while like actually reading every post like every little post and everyone's story. And it actually made me think about it a lot, and so maybe it'll make you think, and that's the main reason why I'm like sharing the link and stuff. Because I do think it's important to hear people's stories. I think it's important for people to come forward when things like this happen. Now, obviously, I think any normal human being thinks that sexual abuse and rape is a terrible thing to do, and you shouldn't do it. And I've talked about this a little bit in videos before. But what seems to be the common thread here is people often have very flexible definitions of what constitutes sexual abuse. And not even just sexual physical abuse, but, emotional abuse, being emotionally manipulative. That sort of thing is involved as well. And I haven't talked about it, that much. I haven't talked about it in detail. I don't think ever on my videos, but, I've had situations where I was emotionally manipulative to people, and, there's a couple of situations that, that's one of the great shames of my life that, that I wish didn't happen, So the big thing that everyone is trying to highlight is the idea of consent. And this is something that I think is a big issue, and it's even a debate in some cases, but consent it's a thing that I don't think we've talked about it that much as a culture prior to like now. Like, we're in the internet era, we're in the Tumblr, blogger era, where people are, telling their stories and talking about consent. But that word consent keeps coming up. I make a lot of videos about relationships and like how to be attractive to people and things like that. And I've done a lot of research in my life. Like when I was a teenager, when I was a young 20-year-old, I was like really interested in like how to get girls to like me and stuff like that, and I actually like researched it and like looked it up and joined forums and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff was actually decent advice, but a lot of it was a little bit troublesome as well. And the idea of consent was not even a thing. There's actually a term in the pickup community called last minute resistance, where for example, if you've convinced a girl to have sex with her, but she's, at the last minute, she's like, I don't know about this. And they actually teach you ways to manipulate people into letting you have sex with them, basically. And, that sort of, obviously, the way, that sounds like really shitty. And I guess it is. I think there's been situations like I've hooked up with people before, and there are definitely situations where people I could be wrong about this, but I feel like there are situations where people are willing to have sex with you, but they show resistance, like they don't want, because in my situation, I think that girls don't want to be perceived as like being slutty, but a lot of times they're down to have sex, but they show resistance. But I don't, just reading all these stories and things like that, I wonder how common that is, and I wonder like how often people have sex with people when they don't like really want to, just because they're afraid, not even afraid, but just they don't feel like having to deal with someone being pushy all night, or they feel like they owe it or something like that. I just wondered. It made me think about that, because at this point, like, I'm like, I wonder if there's been times where someone didn't want to have sex with me, and then I tried to convince them, but they didn't really want to. And if that's happened, then that makes me feel really shitty. Because, like I said, we haven't talked about this as a culture, about consent as a culture. And then, if you know anything about me, you know that I like to, go out and have drinks and stuff. And I've mentioned before that I think drunk people having sex with each other is okay. But a lot of people say that drunk people are unable to give consent. I'm not really sure how I feel about that, but thinking about it, I've talked to many people who have had sex while drunk, and then the next day they regretted it. But I guess up until now, I just sort of thought that was a funny aspect of alcohol culture. Is that, oh, sometimes you have sex with people, but really, like, that's actually, like, really serious. Like, you shouldn't have sex with people and then regret it. Like, that's not how sex should work. So I'm wondering if the people who say that drunk people can't give consent are actually right, because, and trust me, I know people that get drunk and have sex and they're fine the next day. That happens. So I don't know, I don't want this video, I guess I want you to be able to take something away from this video, but if you take anything away from the video, is you really have to think about consent. And this goes for anyone, men, women, boys, girls, anything in between. Like, I think we have to be a little bit more, you have to think about how other people feel. Because, like, even in situations like I was talking about, say someone is resisting you and saying, like, no, I don't think I want to do it, and you do convince them to have sex with you, okay, you can say, like, okay, yeah, they consented, so we're all good. But you have to think about how they feel. How will they feel the next day? They, even though they did it, they may feel like manipulated or feel, not right about it the next day, and that's not cool. Like, you shouldn't make people feel like that. So I think that's the main thing. You have to really think about the other person. Like, you have to think, are they going to be okay with this the next day, even if they do it? Because I think, especially for, in our culture, the male, the whole, thing to be a dude is, you go and you get laid or whatever, and then, you get a pat on the back or anything. But, I'm too old for that whole shit. Like, I'm trying to make people, I don't want to, like, ruin people's lives and shit just so I can get laid. And this is something I'm going to continue thinking about, but that's just the thing that I'm taking away from this right now, is you have to think about how someone else is going to feel, because you can, like, really seriously mess someone's life up. Like, I've read so many of the stories and posts that people posted, and they all, so many of them were like, I was fucked up for years because of this. And it could be just not even anything that seems that serious. You could just, like, emotional manipulation it could just be words. You can just say shitty things to people. Another thing that I'm sort of taking away from this is that you sort of never know. Like, anybody, people you admire can do shitty things. People So you never put a person on a pedestal. This is a lot of this happened because people wanted to impress, this person that they admire. And it involved, people that you could even say that they were taking advantage of their position as, like, this famous person or whatever. I guess it still just boils down to, you have to, just think about other people. Even if they're your fan, even if you're famous and they're not, like, they're still people, and you have to treat them as such, And this is also something for me to think about, because, I'm not like a super huge YouTuber or anything, but, I get messages from fans all the time, and, occasionally I've met a couple people that were fans of my work, and there's, I have to make sure I don't, abuse that, I don't want to call it power, but that position. because I don't, you know, it's all fun and games, but I'm not trying to ruin people's lives. I'm not trying to be shitty to people. I want everybody to be happy. Sex is fun, and I think everyone should have it, but you shouldn't do it at the expense of other people. At the expense of other people's emotions or feelings, or yeah. I mean, and it's tricky, and I think it should be tricky, because, you know, human beings are tricky. We're very complex creatures, and so it should be tricky, but we should be open. It doesn't have to be that hard if we just open and communicate with each other, and if we just think about how someone else feels, you know, think about it deeply, you know, because that's the only thing that I can think of. Like if you want to have sex with someone and they say no, but but you keep trying, I feel like you're just not even considering the other person at that point. And, you know, nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes, and that's why I think it's good to think about things like this. And I've thought about this to some extent, but I've never really thought about it in this particular way, and just thinking about my life and my experiences. I've done things in my life that I'm not proud of, for sure. And I've tried very hard to avoid doing stuff like that. But yeah.